Just go to the bottom.
The record sign's popped up for me.
Is it on?
Yeah, I can see it in the corner.
Cool. I'll just wait. See if there's any more people.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Miranda.
Hello.
Hello.
Right, I'm also you. Let me sign out and try and sign in as myself. I'm so sorry.
It said it was signing me out, and I was like,
I know. Hold on. Hopefully it won't sign you out too. Give me 2 seconds.
No, I think I'm all good. Yeah, sorry. Does it still say recording?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Won't show me for some reason. Give it like 2 more minutes, then we'll start.
That's cool. Ah, there you are.
Okay.
I'm trying to get in.
I'm in.
Okay.
Hi, George.
Hey, George.
Hello, you right?
Good, thank you. Okay, it's nearly 5 past, so I'll get started. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the 3rd session of the I Am Here project, all about sexuality. I'm Heather. I'm one of the young change makers. We've got Hannah and Ollie and George as well, and Marius, Alicia, most of them. So just a few things to start. If you want to keep your cameras off and on mute, that's absolutely fine. If you want to keep your camera on, that's also fine, however you feel comfortable. If you do have any questions throughout the session, just pop them in the chat box, and someone will always be monitoring it, so we can ask them if they're relevant in the moment, or keep them till the Q&A at the end. Or if you have any questions that you don't want anyone else to see, just do them to me privately and I can ask them at the end. That's absolutely fine. So to anybody who doesn't really know what the Changemakers do, I'll just give you a little rundown of who we are, what we do and why we do it. So we came together, the recent cohort came together at the end of last year. There's 9 of us now. Basically, the idea is to, the Queen's Theatre put us together to try and come up with ideas and events to engage 18 to 25-year-olds, because there seems to be some sort of drop-off point around that time. I don't know if it's related to uni or just kind of reaching that age where you kind of go, actually, theatre's not for me anymore, because I used to go to youth theatre, but it's stopped now, so what's the point? So the idea is to kind of put on events and hope that young people will engage again and come back to the theatre. We were going to put on some sort of like summer festival, maybe get some like creative artists in and just have some sort of like big summer blowout, but obviously, but obviously because of COVID, that can't happen. So we had to kind of come back together, rethink what we could do. And Zoom seemed like the obvious answer, because that is what everything is on at the moment. And I think particularly with the kind of conversations that are going on at the moment within the industry, in terms of, you know, things are coming out the woodwork of things that just aren't acceptable within the industry at the moment. It's become quite exclusive in some certain aspects, and conversations are starting to be had about how we can be more inclusive of people of colour, people from the LGBTQ community, people with disabilities. And I think it's a really important time to start opening up those conversations. So we wanted to have these sessions to kind of create space for conversations like that and bring on people who we think have a good experience, a good knowledge of certain topics, and just start the conversation. Hopefully it can continue. So that's the reason we wanted to do the I Am Here project, and it's kind of been quite successful up until now. Basically our guest today is Kelly Jones. Hi, Kelly.
Hello. Hiya.
So just to give you a little bit about Kelly before we get started. So Kelly is a gay working class playwright from Dagenham, Essex, England, the world, the universe. And she won the BBC Drama Award in 2014. So she's kind of a big deal. She has just completed the Emerging Playwrights programme at the Bush Theatre. She's part of the Mercury Essex Voices and the BBC Drama Room. She's also created the Queer Arts Collective Wales. She does a lot of extensive work with the LGBTQ community. She has a lot to say, and she's very engaging, which is why we brought her on today. I'm going to pass over to Kelly and we'll get started. As I said, any questions, just pop them in the chat box. Enjoy, everybody. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Hiya. You're right. It's very hard to do this on Zoom, isn't it? It's really weird to not be in a room together. I'm going to pretend like we are. So I want to keep it quite informal. I've kind of got a bit of a shape for things. We're going to read some extracts as well, which I'm going to talk about my experience of working on those particular projects related to kind of the subject. So we're going to start with an extract, actually. So I'm going to throw it back to Hannah and Heather. So this is an extract from a play of mine called Soil. I thought it was quite a good one to start with. It's very gay, so deal with it. It's kind of generational lesbian love story. The play actually is about eco-death care and is about people becoming trees when they die. This is just the first scene though, and it's been cut together to make it much shorter, so there may be some gaps. But I'll throw you over to the lovely ladies.
You'll never get that in there.
Want to bet?
You need a transit.
Get the whole forest in the transit.
It's basic math.
Is it offending you?
Only because it's stupid.
Stupid's in the eye of the beholder, mate.
You've got a branch in your hair.
Can I help you?
No,
I've not seen you here before.
you wouldn't have.
Ain't lost, are you?
Not lost.
Visiting then? Taking in the sights?
I'm waiting for someone.
A date?
I suppose. We're going to the protest.
Oh, how romantic.
It is actually. It's about the environment.
What do you know about the environment?
Enough.
Specifically?
The toxin levels in the soils are higher than they should be.
Because... See?
If you're so bothered, why aren't you down there?
I prefer more active forms of activism.
Like,
So where's this date then?
what time is it?
Almost 5.
I think I've been stood up.
Oh, sorry.
It's alright. Usually I'd mind, but
Well, it's his loss.
what makes you think it's a he?
Oh, I shouldn't presume.
No, you shouldn't. Presumptions are dangerous.
Aren't they just?
I could do with getting home. All this greenery is giving me a headache.
Not from the grey place, are you?
Barking, actually. Something wrong with that?
Not what I look for in a home.
Ever been?
I won't be seen dead.
Right, well, thanks for the company. I'll let you get back to your... I've distracted you enough.
I like distractions. We could go the protest if you want.
Thought you preferred more active forms of activism.
I've got a clean top in my bag.
Is it a date?
Not if you didn't want.
Right.
We'd just be two people killing some time till you go back to the grey place.
Isn't that what we're all doing?
I'm Ruth.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. So that was a scene from just a play that I wrote a while back. I just wanted to kind of just share that just at the beginning, and just talk to you a little bit about my kind of writing journey. Kind of first off, I first fell in love with theatre at Queen's Theatre. My dad won tickets in the Dagenham Post to see the Panto. And kind of took me along, and it snowed on stage, and I remember it was the most magical thing I had ever seen, and I couldn't stop talking about it, and I really wanted to work in theatre kind of from then, but kind of didn't really know that was an option or how to do that or what that meant other than acting or EastEnders. So I went to university. I did my first 2 years of my degree at Southend in South East Essex College. I did a HND in Performing Arts and Theatre Making. And then I did my final year in Swansea University. Now, Swansea University is kind of where I sort of became aware of playwriting. I'd kind of only heard of like male playwrights, white male playwrights, who were all dead. So I didn't really know that was an option for me. Kind of our final year project, I really wanted to write a play. I didn't know what that was or how to do that, but I really wanted to, but I was kind of advised not to because there was no one that could really mark it on the course. There was a kind of there was no place for it in the course was quite a devising thing. So there was not really, they were like, we don't have anyone who does playwriting, so you can't really, so I ended up directing something and acting really badly. And then when I graduated, I was kind of sort of jobbing, trying to go to auditions, trying to be an actor, whatever that meant. But I kind of didn't think that was what I wanted to do. I kind of liked being in control and making up my own stories and things like that. And at the time, everything I was seeing and reading and auditioning for didn't feel like it represented me or my experiences as a working class woman from Essex. I didn't even know you were allowed to, gays' stories were allowed on stage then. The only thing I knew of was My Night with Reg, which was a very kind of, if you know it, it's a great play. That's kind of a very old play about gay male experience. I'd never seen those stories. I'd seen Sugar Rush, but that was about it, and that was TV. So I kind of started writing parts for myself and going to like scratch nights and doing bits and bobs. None of it was kind of about me being gay. And then I got invited to be part of a community theatre project. It was kind of actors writing short monologues about where they were from and kind of how they grew up and things like that. I wrote two. I wrote one about working in a betting shop because I used to be a betting shop manager. So I wrote a little monologue about going to the betting shop and wishing that I was not in the betting shop. And then I wrote this one, which you're going to see. So I want to just preface this. This is very old. This is before I learned about formatting and other fonts other than Times New Roman. There's no double spacing going on. It's a really awful piece, but I think it's really important because of the learning, which is what I'll talk to you about in a minute. But yeah, this is my Company 5 monologue. If you want to just share the screen.
Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah, have you got it up there?
Yeah, I can get it up.
The suspense.
Can you see
That's
it? Yeah?
Yeah.
I can't get it all on the page.
So it was a piece about, which was based on truth. I went home. Before I moved to Wales, I had a friend called Tasha who lived in Wales, who was a lesbian. I went to visit her in the summer. when I came home, I came out to my mum, and my mum said it's Wales's fault because I'd just been to Wales to visit a lesbian. So she presumed that that was the reason why. So I kind of wrote about that. But there was a couple of really interesting things that sort of happened. Or maybe I'll just give you a little bit of time to just scan it if you want to do that. It's quite painful. Yeah, there's a couple of really interesting things that sort of happened when I wrote this piece. Firstly, the director had kind of not seen me as a gay woman. So when I sort of handed this in, she was a bit like, I mean, you presume that doesn't happen in the arts. The kind of literary team and the director kind of got me to put in, like, if you see sort of here-ish, all the stuff are kind of about Barbie and Cindy, about me preferring Transformers to Barbies. That's not true. And me wanting to be Aladdin. I did want to be Aladdin, and that's little story is true, but I wanted to be Aladdin because he was the main part, not because he was a boy and got the girl. So a lot of this kind of stuff I was sort of made to put in a really kind of binary, that's a really kind of binary view of sexuality, and going, oh, if you're a lesbian, then that must mean that you as a child liked football and boys things, and you didn't like Barbies. I bloody loved Barbies and Cindy, loved them all. And the reverse, obviously, if you're a gay man, then that must mean you love tutus and dressing up in your mum's shoes, which just isn't true. It's a really kind of binary view of sexuality and gender. So that was kind of the first thing that was made to kind of put all that stuff in. And I kind of put it all in because they were like, this is going to be performed, it's going to happen, it's da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of hadn't really realised it at the time. And it was only really when we've been talking about this session, and I was like digging around and finding some bits. And I was like, actually, that experience is really weird. Because the other thing about it is that everybody kept telling me how brave I was, in a really kind of patronising sort of way. So another part of my life is that I'm a comedy burlesque performer. And it's a similar reaction that I get when I tell people that I do that. They go, oh, you're so brave. It's really patronising, and it's about like who is meant to be in those spaces. So as a woman who is slightly bigger, maybe the view is that I shouldn't be doing that. And as a lesbian, maybe the view is that it's very brave for me to be standing on stage talking about it. When actually, is it that brave? Do we go to straight people, it's very brave of you to be straight in that space? When actually theatres are spaces for us exploring the world and representing, well, they should be, about us representing everybody. So those were those kind of two things that sort of kind of came from that. And I was like, what was brave, really, about that? I don't think it was brave at all. Off the back of that, I got invited onto a writers program, which was, a really good thing that kind of came from it. And kind of, they were really interested in my kind of queer perspective and me writing about that. But I kind of was like working out who I was as a writer, and I was like, is that who I am? Is that my voice? Surely I've got other things to say as well. So this kind of next bit leads me on to talking about Tammy, which is, I would probably say, the bravest play that I have ever done. So Tammy was a play I wrote. It's very directly about my experience. It was the first kind of real time that I'd spoken about my queerness in a really personal way on stage. It was probably the play that I've had the most success with. I've just got a little extract that the ladies are going to read from that one. Mm-hmm. And just to say, the characters, Jackie is in her 50s, Tammy's in her 30s, and this is kind of the first time they've seen each other for 15 years. So I just want to pass that over to the ladies. Thank you very much.
Oh, what now? Jesus. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, I'll have you on mute.
mute. Sorry.
Why isn't she responding?
My bad.
I'll start again.
Thanks.
Oh, what now? Jesus.
Ain't much changing here. Should I take my boots off?
No.
Roads were a nightmare.
Was it?
Bank holiday's always the same.
Not every bank holiday. Ain't parked over someone's drive, are you?
Got the coach.
The cheap one.
Does that matter?
Your mate with you.
She's not my friend.
Don't let me keep you.
Ain't travelled on the coach for ages.
I'll get the banners and balloons, shall I?
Did sit at the front though, in case I got travel sick.
And were you?
No.
Must have grown out of it.
You always told me if I felt sick, to hold my pressure points.
And you listened. Blimey.
Roads were busy. Nothing but caravans in every lane. Roof racks on every car, surfboards.
Yeah?
Buses full of people going away for the weekend.
And you?
Seeing some friends.
Well, on you go then.
I thought I'd stop in.
Right. Thanks then.
Surprised I remembered the way from the station.
Surprise seems to be catching.
I know it's been a while.
I was still having periods last time you were here.
You lose track of time.
An hour, a day maybe. Lost a week once catching up on my soaps. But this,
I know.
15 years, a lot to lose.
15. Blimey.
Not 15 in total, like 5 in, 2 there, 3 whilst you're at uni or whatever. Nah, 15 straight.
Then I am really surprised that I remember the way here.
I'd give you a gold star, but you're a bit old for that now.
33 in December.
I know.
I got you these.
I don't have a vase.
I can get you one.
And with my hay fever,
Never said.
just did. Now, if that's all,
Am I keeping you?
my programme starts at 8.
Anything good?
Not for your sort.
Just a quick cuppa then.
Got to hang the washing out before it rains.
Not now.
Yes, now.
Can I help?
We're fine.
We can catch up
We don't need to catch up.
but I'd like to.
Oh, anyone would think you're strapped to my side.
I had a pair like this.
I can finish the rest.
Are these hers?
Well, they ain't mine.
What's she like?
You've got- Can we get rid of this person? I think they've come to troll, maybe. Oh, they've gone. Okay, let's carry on. Where were we?
I said, are these hers?
Oh, use hers. Well, then,
These hers. What's she like?
she's like me.
I remember Gran saying she was in Miss Thompson's class, year 3.
Never keep her mouth shut, that gran of yours.
That was my class. It's funny.
Is it?
What with being my sister and that. She out?
Sisters now. Yeah, she is.
Friends?
She's very popular.
Good. I can put the kettle on.
We're out of tea bags.
Unusual for this house.
It's a big bag for just stopping in.
I thought I might stay.
Anywhere nice?
Just for tonight.
No.
Everywhere else is booked.
Oh, charming.
You know what I mean.
What about these friends of yours?
I said I'd already booked somewhere.
Still lying then.
I'll be gone in the morning.
We've got stuff on this weekend.
It's been too long.
You ain't got the room.
She in Gran's old room.
No one is in Gran's old room.
Been gone some years.
Not 15 though.
Sofa then.
I ain't got no clean bedding.
I don't mind popping out.
Asda be terrible this time.
I don't mind. And if you've got a spare plate,
We only have enough food for the two of us.
I know that's not true.
We stock up on what we have.
Then I'll go to the shops.
Shops are chaos today.
I'll get some tea bags and biscuits and we can have a cuppa.
I've had one.
I don't mind walking around.
Do you ever listen?
I don't mind.
Said no. You're still into biscuits then?
Yeah, I am.
Great, thank you, ladies. Brilliant. I've never been trolled before. How exciting! Strange world we live in. So I wanted to kind of share that as kind of the first full-length play that I ever wrote directly about sexuality. It's a really personal story. It's based on my experience of going home and telling my parents I was getting married to my partner of like 10 years. And it was about that experience really, and going home and that kind of fracturing of that relationship. And I kind of wrote it in a really speedy time. I wrote it in a couple of weeks, really fast and furious. It won an award. It won the kind of BBC Drama Award. And it was the first time that I'd ever been called a lesbian working class writer. So I think there was an article, I think it was a stage, and they were like, this lesbian working class writer. And I was like, oh, so that's who I am now. I'm very interested. I think it was like Gay Play Wins Prize or something like that. Firstly, I'd never heard gay play before. I was like, what's a gay play? I just thought there were plays. Like, what is this? Why don't we do that for other things? But it was the first time I'd ever been called that in anywhere, and it kind of became this thing that people wanted me for. People were like, oh, you're the gay working class one. And the class thing was really interesting because class when I was growing up was in my house wasn't really something we spoke about. It wasn't really my mum was always like, class is a thing that exists in Westminster and it's for the posh lot. I just knew there were posh people and there were people who weren't so posh, and then there were the common lot like us, and that was kind of all I really knew. So to be called those two things, I was like, I mean, obviously lesbian I kind of identified with, and that's, you know, that's the kind of label that I've had for always, but the class thing I find really interesting. But this need to kind of put me in this box. I'm going to talk a little bit later about intersectionality, because I think we still don't get to be intersectional, and there's still not space for intersectional stories. But Tammy was really interesting for other reasons, because that play's never been produced, and there were many reasons why I was told. Some said that they felt like it was their audience weren't ready for it yet. You know, the prize that I won was a Wales-based prize, so some people were like, it's too Essex. There was another kind of, we've just done a gay play, so we can't do another one. We've just done a play about mothers and daughters. And actually, we don't really do that about other things. But it made me realise that actually my strength in my writing was the autobiographical, and it made me go, actually, the closer I stick to true experiences, is when I do my best work. And that was something that I really learnt about myself and my process, and kind of writing things that were really kind of close to the bone really helps me. So the kind of next thing I kind of want to talk about is the kind of the negative experiences. So there's another just little extract which Ollie and Hannah are going to read, and then we'll talk about it. Thank you.
It's free, the water.
I've got my own.
Didn't have to.
Always do.
Tastes better from a glass bottle.
Are we waiting on anyone else?
You wouldn't think it, but it does. Different, nicer. You sure you don't
No. Tough.
suit yourself?
Right, well, if that's all then.
Love water. Makes me feel so alive. Right. Yeah, let's get down to business. Let me say, from all the team here, we love your story. I mean, we fucking love it. If it was legal like the gay one, we'd marry it and consummate the fuck out of it.
Thanks, that means.
It's current and new and, well, gay. Can I say that?
I suppose.
Refreshing to finally see some good representation, of the world around us, of lesbians. Let me tell you, I love the lesbians. I mean, I couldn't eat a whole one. Jokes.
Funny.
This will really resonate with people. Women, men, the men will love it.
Oh, it's not really for them.
Have you thought about casting?
Well,
We were thinking Scarlett Johansson for Bella and Jenan for Mia. Obviously, availability.
I was thinking more Ellen Page.
We did think about Ellen, but she gives off a vibe. She's perhaps a bit too...
Gay.
Wears it on her sleeve. But we're happy to talk to her. It is your film, after all.
Right, yeah, of course.
Now, when we spoke about it, there were some things,
Things.
minor tweaks, suggestions.
I always like feedback.
And of course, you can take it or leave it. It's just our opinion.
Part of the process.
Thank you both. Thanks. Hands up if you've had a meeting like that. So the amount of meetings I've had that are like this, once it became very clear that actually a lot of the stuff I wrote was about sexuality, I then ended up being in lots of meetings like that, that would be with people who weren't part of the community, who really didn't get it. And then that became really frustrating, actually. It particularly happened in television quite a lot. I had a series in development, and I had a lesbian Muslim character based on a friend of mine. And they were like, you can't do that. You can't have that. You just can't. But I suppose I wanted to share this. So this is from a play I wrote called Lesbians, 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 which is about what it's like to be a queer woman kind of navigating the world. And I think I started seeing, like, around that time when I was going to all those TV meetings and things like that, I started seeing that the queer scene was popping up everywhere else. There was loads of kind of queer nights happening. The kind of Arcola Queer Arts Collective, which I'll talk about in a bit, was kind of going on, and like lots of really great things, but there was nothing happening for me locally in my community. We were kind of talking earlier actually about the stuff that there is in Essex. I kind of don't really, like, when I was growing up, there kind of certainly wasn't anything. I think there's starting to be more things now, but I'm kind of really not, I'm not sure actually. I know there's lots of things in London, but actually locally close to home would be nice. So I started seeing lots of things pop up everywhere, and I was writing all these plays that were kind of LGBT focused, and was like, where do I put them on? What do I do? Like, what do I do with you? And then there was a theatre that had a kind of a scratch night, and it was kind of LGBT night. They had so many submissions and so much demand for audience that they ended up putting the night on for 3 nights, and it was the best. So like they sold out, and it was amazing, and it was really great, and it was kind of 18 brand new LGBT playwrights from this is when I was living in Wales, and then it kind of didn't happen again. It only happens once, and then that was it. It kind of just didn't go on again, which was a real shame, because I felt like actually that audience is there wanting work, and we should be allowed to see ourselves represented on stage, and should have a space for those stories that is safe and where people understand. So I got into lots of conversations with people, and I was told that there was no audience for LGBT work, which I beg to differ. So I had previously been a part of the Arcola Queer Arts Collective, only kind of on the online forum. I could never kind of afford the bus to come back all the time for meetings. And I was like, actually, why don't I try and set one up where I was living? I had a lot of kind of LGBTQ friends who worked in the arts, we were all kind of having those similar conversations together in the bar after seeing shows. After seeing another show where, you know, she's a lesbian in Act 1 and then she sleeps with a man, or she's, you know, she gets with her girlfriend and then one of them dies, or, you know, that were falling into those tropes that wasn't written by people that were from the community. So we kind of all had this kind of discussion, and they were like, actually, let's do something about it. And it started as a research project into audiences and me trying to prove that there was a queer audience for work in Wales. So I applied to the Arts Council. They gave me some money, which was very nice. And I just did a shout out on Facebook as a kind of a first thing. I was like, I'm thinking about having a meeting. Who wants to come? I'll hire a room, get some sarnies and some beer, and come along. We'll just chat about what the scene is here. Is there a scene? What's your experience? Kind of overnight, we had lots of comments, lots of messages, lots of like loads and loads of shares, and it kind of got a bit thingy. The first meeting we had 90 people show up. It was kind of all cross discipline, kind of lots of different people represented, and we were like, oh, actually, there's something here. It was insane. There wasn't enough sandwiches, so. But it was great. It was really good. And go, actually, these people are, you know, we're here for an audience. Like, these are people who are an audience. So why are they not being catered for on main stages throughout this place? Then we kind of had a bit of a regular meetup, and it would be people would dip in and kind of talk about different things. We had a kind of online, which we still have actually. There's a kind of online network, which has sort of become this space for sharing opportunities, connecting with each other, and just chatting about what it's like to be a queer person in the industry. It's been a really great thing during coronavirus, actually. Lots of people have been keeping in touch and things like that, and sharing resources. We then decided to I don't know if any of you have ever been to a D&D. Has anyone been to a D&D before? Yeah, yes, I love them. So if you haven't been to, so if you haven't been to a D&D is a kind of day where you explore a subject, I suppose. There's usually a question. So our question was, what's up, queers? And what is the state of LGBT arts in Wales? And it's an open space event. So you can suggest sessions, put them on a wall and go, I'm going to do a session on the representation of lesbians in theatre and film, and I'm going to do it in the space in the hallway, and I'll put it on a board, and I'm going to do it at 11 o'clock. Who wants to come? And you do that throughout the day, and people just add sessions to the board. And then it doesn't have to be kind of discussion based. It can be creative based. There was like dance workshops. There's things happening throughout the whole day. We had like an insane amount of people kind of through that door. And during the day, we kind of collected kind of write-ups of every single session. And we had this like stack of stuff that we took to the Arts Council and was like, there is an audience in Wales. And not only is there an audience, but there is a massive LGBTQ makers who are incredibly talented, cross-discipline, who've been here and are making the most extraordinary work, who somehow aren't finding their way through. Since then, there's kind of been discussions about how we move that discussion, and how they do more for us and for LGBTQ. I mean, I'm no longer based in Wales, so it's quite a difficult discussion for me to have. But the best thing that's come out of all of that is that group, and that group of people that now know each other exist. So it can be quite lonely, and it's quite hard to find your tribe, and it's quite hard to find your place in the kind of queer arts sector. It's quite difficult. There's a real issue. Some people have an issue around the word queer as well. There's kind of a generational trauma around that word. So it's quite hard, like if you don't identify with that, but then every group is called that, and it can be quite difficult to find your place. So that was a real kind of, I love that group, and that was something I was really proud of doing and kind of setting up, and kind of meant that it sort of felt like I'd found my people. So that was really nice. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about some kind of barriers and challenges and things that I think are wrong in the industry in relation to LGBTQ kind of work. So I touched a little bit earlier on intersectionality. Does everyone know what I mean when I say that? No? Great. So intersectionality is about identity. So there's a lack of people wanting intersectional stories. So it's when you're more than one thing, and they don't see the cross section of those two things. So I think they can go, oh, well, you're the gay one, so you do the gay thing. You're the person of colour, so you do that stuff. Oh, but you're gay and disabled. Oh, shit. Like, I don't really understand what to do with those two things and how those, oh, when you're gay and trans and a person of colour, I don't know what to do with all of that. So there's a real, and that's quite difficult. So a lot of the stories we see that is about the queer experience, they're not into really that intersectional stories, because I don't think, sometimes it's quite hard to have those conversations. It's what I was saying about the TV stuff when I was saying she's a Muslim woman and she's gay, which was based on a person that I know in real life who is my friend. And they were like, those people don't exist. And I was like, yes, they do. But it's because there's a real, so that's a barrier, I think. And I think there's a sense of making stories palatable. And I think that sometimes happens, and that's a real disadvantage of ours. There's the curse of the gay play. If you do a play that is LGBT focused, it will be called the gay play. And it will only be able to be seen by the gays, because they go, this is the gay play, stay away. That's also there is a double edge to that, because there is something quite nice about, I pick up a brochure and I go, this is the gay play. As a gay woman, as a young gay kid, I would have loved that. I would have loved to have been able to pick up a little booklet and go, these are all the gay things that I can see that might talk about me in a real way, so I can know that I'm okay to exist. So that would have been really lovely. But there is a kind of real curse in it. It's kind of, it gets defined as, and they see that as a negative. There's a real kind of, this is a negative thing. There's kind of an internal homophobia, I think, in the queer community. I think sometimes I've been to see work that I know is written by someone who is queer and is talking about the queer experience, but it falls into all of those horrible tropes and cliches that all the other ones do. And I think that's due to internal homophobia. And we feel like we have to prove our place, and we go, oh, do we have to write something more commercial in order to get stuff on? If you're only seeing LGBT work that's maybe written by straight people or whatever, and they do fall into those tropes, you go, oh, well, that's what I have to write then as a gay person. If I'm going to get something on, this is how I make it get on, which is really sad and a real shame. But it happens quite a lot. Like, I've seen a lot of plays last year, the year before, all written by gay men, and they were all about chemsex, or about one of them not wanting to commit but the other one wanting to commit, and so the other one cheats. It became really boring. But it's actually, like, I feel like we've got a lot to say at the moment. I feel like the world is, as kind of Heather said in the beginning, the world is really changing, and actually we are getting used to demanding our place at the table, regardless of whether you're LGBT or not. We're all getting used to kind of going, actually, we deserve our voice to be heard, whether it's, you know, as someone who's from Essex, as a person of colour, you know, as someone who's disabled, whatever that is. We're all going, we deserve to be here and deserve to be heard. So we should be able to put the best, it should be about the best on, and it should be those best stories, and showing the nuances of our lives. The kind of tropes, I sort of touched on them earlier, that sort of stuff that we have to put up with, particularly in television. And as a gay woman, it really grinds on me when she's gay in the first scene and she's like, my girlfriend gives me everything I need. And then in scene 2, she sleeps with a man who's not even attractive. And you go, that's really sad. Like, why are you doing that? And she's like, I'm so confused. And you're like, oh, what's going on? So it's really annoying. That, or they get together and one of them dies. And I've written lots of angry letters to EastEnders about things like that. It happens a lot, I think, in soaps. And I think that's a real shame, because if you are a young queer person and you're watching, sometimes your access to the theatre is through TV and through soaps. Like, those soaps are pieces of theatre, and they are incredibly theatrical. They're panto. and if your access to the, you know, to the arts is kind of through that, and you're only seeing, you know, gay misery stories or gay torture porn, or, you know, whatever it is, then you go, oh, I feel like I can't tell my story because that's not going to get made, or I can't tell the truth because that's not what people want to see. Sometimes characters are only gay and nothing else. There's nothing else about them other than they're gay. Being gay is the least interesting thing about me. It's, you know, it does depend on how I navigate the world. It, you know, it makes my relationship to the world really different and how I navigate that. But it's the least, you know, it's not the only thing about me. It's you know, it's one of the least interesting things about me. And actually, sometimes we see stuff that that's the character is just there as the gay one, the token gay one to tick the box. And I think that's really detrimental. I think sometimes theatres still see putting on gay work as a risk. And they feel like if they have a gay season, for example, sometimes it's quite heavily sort of male focused, when actually it should kind of represent the kind of different parts of the community. But there are lots of theatres that still see putting on gay work as a risk, and they'll go, we can't have 2 gay plays in a year, or we can't have because it just can't happen like that. And then there's sort of the tokenistic stuff where I'm really aware that I've been invited onto certain groups and things like that as the only gay one. And when I'm there, they expect me to write certain stories. It's a similar thing with class. You know, if they go, pitch us a story about, you know, growing up in working class Dagenham, and you go, okay, I'll write about this or whatever. And they're like, oh, that's not what we expected. We wanted they want the POV porn, or they want the gay porn, or, you know, they only want one version of the story. And actually it's kind of up to us to kind of show them that's not it. Because they don't want those things, it doesn't mean I'm not going to write them. So I'm just going to write them anyway, and I'll just do it. Are there any kind of questions at the moment, just before I go on to the next bit?
I had a question actually about.
Hello, George.
Hello. I had a question about your tokenism,
Mm-hmm.
and which is something which I'm really kind of curious about, because you kind of spoke of, well, like, firstly being a writer and either being invited into certain groups or spaces because they have specifically boxed you in and it's kind of seen as ideal. I guess it's kind of a vast question, but how have you began to deal with that, and what advice would you give to kind of writers, perhaps steps, you know, to help them or thrust them into a space where they feel like, you know, that they are more than that, because it is a, you know, I guess it is a heavy burden, and it's, I don't think it's, yeah.
No, that's a really complicated question, but it's hard because sometimes I can use that to my advantage, because it means I can get onto things, and I know that, and I will play up the queer, because it's an unfortunate you have to do that, but you kind of sometimes have to do that. And I'm aware when I write my Arts Council forms, obviously I mention that I'm gay. My work is kind of all gay anyway. So I kind of mention that in there, and I'll always put class in there, and it feels horrible to have to do that stuff, but you kind of sort of have to do it. I think you can tell though. I think you can tell when people are kind of, it's an honest gesture from someone who's genuinely interested in you and your talent, or it's a gesture from someone to bring you on because that's all they see you for, and they go, oh, you're the one who's we need to have someone who's gay on this, so okay. I think you can really spot those kind of rats, and even if they do kind of put you on those things and you know you're there for that reason, you know, you don't have to write what they expect you to write at all. You write what you want to write. You don't always have to write about being queer, or, you know, whatever it is. You kind of don't always have to write about that. Only if you want to, really. We're going to talk about it a bit later, but my kind of hope is that one day we just write plays and they don't get like sub categorized. And I think the categorizing sometimes is really helpful, you know, because I was saying about, like, you know, as a young gay kid, it would have been great to have that book. And I've got Scotty's book of queer monologues, and I've kind of given that to lots of kind of friends and things like that, because I think it's really great. And there isn't many monologues for queer people when they're auditioning for drama school, particularly trans people. It's really difficult when you're asked to pick a male or female monologue to audition, and you're a kind of non-binary person, and you're like, how do you fit into that? Before you've even got into that room, they're expecting you to kind of define yourself. So it's really difficult. But yeah, I've kind of wandered off the point a little bit, but I think you can spot the ones that are kind of not genuine, and be really clear about what they're doing for you. Go, am I you know, is this gonna, if I be part of this group or this program or whatever it is this going to further my career in any way? Or, you know, do they just want me because they want me on the group? Or is this going to be a step back? Or is it going to be, are you in the driving seat in those situations, I suppose? One of the best groups I was ever on, actually, was the Bushes group, the Bush EWG group. I was just like, it was a kind of blind submission, and I was just on it because I really liked my play. I kind of wasn't really, and I had the first meeting I had with them was the meeting where they were like, we really want to, you know, we want to invite you onto this group, and and had a C commission, which was really great, actually. So they're brilliant. There's some companies that are really bad, but, and I'll DM you, but but there's, you know, there's definitely like really genuine ones who really care, and it's at the core of everything they do. They're not doing it in a kind of tokenistic way to kind of boost ticket sales. And yeah, if you look at their program and you see yourself represented, then you know that, you know, they've got your back. But if you look at it and you go, you've never programmed a play that's had any gay character in it other than a really offensive something or other, and now you're going, we're doing an LGBT like thing, and and it all feels really tokenistic. Yeah, you'll be able to tell. But also, like, you know, connect with other queer people, and they can, you know, or whoever, and we talk amongst each other, and kind of we have each other's backs. That's one of the great things about being part of the queer community, is we are a community. We look out for each other. Because of that, kind of, we're othered by other people. So yeah, thanks, George. Does that answer your question? Sort of. Has anyone else got anything? Just try and move on.
I have a couple of things, but Kelly, I'm happy to wait if you've got until the actual Q&A, if you've got more.
Okay, that's fine.
We do that?
I'll steam through.
Okay.
And I'll come back to you. Thanks. So I feel like I've spoken a lot about the problems and what we're going to do, about it. I wanted to kind of give you some kind of advice, really. So I put a little tweet out and kind of tagged some people, and I asked kind of the queer elders to give the baby queers some advice and things they wish they knew when they first started working in theatre, and had some really lovely responses, because I think that's really important, is connecting with other queers and kind of taking advice from the ones that have kind of been there and done it. So I'm just going to read them out. So Doug, the man of the house, the gaffer, he said, growing up, being other makes you a great listener, empathizer, and ultimately a great storyteller. The best ones to see and tell stories, which I think is really beautiful. So Scotty, performance artist Scotty, said, don't seek permission, they're never going to give it to you. Teddy Lamb, who is a trans playwright, said, being queer is your strength, not your weakness. Shane Nichols, who's a creative producer, said, seek good people, bring your queerness to every project, regardless of the subject. It is valid and it is needed in the room. And I think that goes for anything. You have a kind of unique viewpoint about the world, regardless of what box you're in. You have that kind of, and actually you should take that to the room. So Tom Wentworth, who's a screenwriter, said, write what you want to write. sometimes writing what you know isn't for everyone, which I think is a great one, because we're always told as writers, write what you know. And actually that's really hard, actually. Sometimes, you know, I write quite autobiographically, so for me, I just go, oh, what's the story that you know, is under the family rug that no one wants to talk about? I'll write about that. But actually, if you don't have that, and actually you just want to write what you want to write, just write what you want to write. So Jennifer Lunn, who is a playwright, said, really look and see if you are being represented in the work that is being produced. If you're not, then demand it or make it yourself. And then James, who is a playwright and a poet, said, ignore those who say, when are you going to stop writing about queer things? No one asks straight people that. Find your people, do the work, and ignore the noise, which I thought was really beautiful. Lots of kind of stuff about finding your people and kind of finding your tribe. There's lots of kind of groups online. You can join Queer Arts Collective if you want. It's Wales based, but if it's not for you. But there is the Arcola Queer Arts Collective. I'm kind of not sure how active that is anymore. But there's Be and Do, which is part of Barking and Dagenham, and it's part of Studio 3. They've got a community meeting actually tomorrow evening. So if you're interested, I can give you the details of that. Kind of last thing is I've got a kind of final extract, really. What time is it? If we've got time, do you think we've got time? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got time.
Yeah. I just wanted to show, this is something I'm currently working on. I had an R&D back in February. It's a kind of big play I'm redrafting. But the character in it is a gay woman, and it's just said in a really flippant way. My kind of hope one day is that we can have stuff like that. We can have it where it's just something that is a facet of you and your characters, rather than kind of the only thing about the play. Unfortunately, I think until then, we are going to have stuff that is directly focused. So this is an extract from Bump. Yeah, take it away.
Just get to it. Sorry. From scene 2, isn't it? Hello? Okay, hang on, sorry. We're sat in the bathroom at home. I'm perched on the toilet, not shitting or pissing, and she's on the edge of the bath. In my hands, I hold the pregnancy test that contains it. Not physically it, but a droplet of piss that could prove it exists. Although I don't know that yet. Neither of us do. So we wait. Her on the side of the bath, me on the toilet. And the collection of porcelain dolls that Auntie Lil bought us when Mum died, watching us from the shelf. It's mega creepy. We make small talk. Made any New Year's resolutions? She asks. Apparently it's what I'm meant to do, but that's effort. Adult. And I'm only 15. So all I can think of is wank less, get a girlfriend, don't be a cunt, and just because your hormones are fizzy. I don't say that. I just say dunno and ask her the same. She says, I want to lower gas prices and for you to stop being so gay. I laugh, but I can't tell if she's joking. My sister's like that. Was like that. My Casio beeps. It's time. It's a bit of a sliding doors moment, you know, with Gwyneth Paltrow. Pregnant, not pregnant. Through one door is shitty nappies and sore nipples, and through the other is parties, shagging and sleep. Well, she says. She snatches it from me. Rude. She stares into the little window for what feels like pregnant. She shows me pregnant. You all right? She goes. I'm all right, but her asking is a bit weird. She's the one that's going to be giving birth in 9 months, not me. I'm going to be its auntie. Cool Auntie Jojo. Say Auntie Jojo. Can you say Jojo? Jojo? Say Jojo. Can you say Joe? Can you say Auntie? Blink if you think I'm the best auntie in the whole wide world. Okay, blink if you think you're the best baby in the whole world. Stare if you love me. There's a knock on the door. You all right, girls? It's Auntie Lil. She's been hovering outside for a while now. glass to wall, fluff from her slippers seeping under the door. She likes to check up on us, likes to make sure we're not getting ourselves into trouble, because she loves us. We're fine. Fuck. Now she knows we're up to something, knows we're not fine. Well, I am fine. She's just stood there, staring at it. Maybe she's hoping the result will change. Maybe not. I don't know. Inside, she's all like, is it too soon? Is she ready? Will she be good enough? She is good enough. I tell her it'll be brilliant. You'll be brilliant, because I know she will be. Will you move in with me? She goes. In the flat, just till it's born. In that voice she does when she wants something. My sister has these different voices. One for when she's pissed off at me and don't want to show it, which usually involves her saying, it's fine. And this one. Me and this one are mates. I'll let you have parties with all your lesy friends. I tell her, no way, absolutely not. She makes her face with her stomach like this. Please, Auntie Jojo, for me. I pack a bag and leave the next day. Definition: auntie/aunt. Noun: 1. The sister of one's father or mother or the wife of one's uncle. 2. A responsible older woman. Synonyms: barren, spinster, crone, witch, lesbian.
Thank you.
Oh.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's kind of everything I've got. It's Q&A now. So fire away. What have you got for me?
Absolutely. Has anyone got any questions? If not, I'll kick it off. Okay, I'll kick it off. So what kind of other, throughout your career, I guess, what kind of other queer artists have inspired you? Like, they might not be very, very well known, just people that have kind of given you good advice or made you feel like you got this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the first play I ever read when I was Cled Dowie, Why Is John Lennon Wearing a Skirt? And actually she's got lots of Claire's plays are about kind of sexuality and gender and her bending those rules. So I think there was certainly I remember that quite fondly. I remember seeing the word lesbian in print and being like, oh, that's me, I exist. There's certainly like some queer elders. So so Jane Boone, who is a kind of community artist and director. She was an actor once. But I've worked with her quite a lot on lots of kind of community projects and things like that. She's really inspiring because she's just like, she's kind of an old school activist as well, and was kind of around at the time. Have you seen the film Pride? You know, the gays and lesbians support the minors. She was kind of a part of that original movement. And she's just got so many amazing stories, and actually every part of her practice, she surrounds herself with her community, and I can't remember if I must have forgot to say it, but there's this amazing quote by My Generation, who are kind of a trans organisation, and they say nothing about us without us, and that's exactly it. I think if you look around the room and you don't see anyone like you, then there's something wrong. And I always try and kind of surround myself with lots of people that I, really care about and that I'm going to uplift, as well as them uplifting me. There's a kind of, I love cabaret and kind of burlesque and queerlesque and circus and things like that. So there's kind of lots of kind of queerlesque artists. So there's somebody called Ruby Jones, who I think is really incredible. She's kind of really body positive and is a real badass, like feminist queer woman, and she's amazing. So I think kind of those are the ones that I feel like sort of come to mind. There's definitely, like, I love Scotty, so I think Scotty's work is brilliant. I think they're amazing. They're someone who talks about queerness and class in really interesting ways, and they're just really lovely. So there's people like that who I really love. There's lots of great playwrights. I think lots of queer. The thing is, the industry is made up of lots of queers. There's so many of us. It's nice that actually we just get to come together sometimes and do some stuff.
I find it interesting what you said about the whole I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah, sort of the inner homophobia, because I've definitely experienced that, and it's kind of something I've only recently come to terms with and kind of gone, okay, I need to sort of get my shit together and actually just put myself out there in these spaces, because for so long I was like really confused about where I should put myself, because I kind of, you know, I had my first relationship when I was like 18, and people were kind of going, oh, okay, so are you a lesbian now? Is like, what's going on? And I was sort of like, well, I don't know yet. Like, I don't even know who I am. So I can't, sure as hell can't tell you who I am, sort of thing. And then obviously, as my life's gone on, it's kind of like I've had relationships with men and women. So it's sort of like I've kind of had this inner kind of homophobia of sort of like, I don't know who I am. Like, am I straight now? Like, what's going on? And so I have kind of not put myself out in those spaces because I just, through fear of not being accepted. I know that's silly because I will be accepted, but yeah, it's something I've sort of recently come to realize that it's okay, I can put myself out in those spaces. So yeah, it was interesting what you said about that. Yeah.
I think it's really I think that's really amazing, and actually it's okay that your journey is about you discovering. I had relationships with boys, smelly boys, when I was younger, because I knew I was gay, but I didn't know I was allowed to be. So I was like, oh, that's fine. You know, surely everybody fancies like these 20 girls in my school, you know, and I just didn't know I was allowed. So I had, you know, I had boyfriends and things like that. And I had a really similar thing when I sort of came out. People were going, so are you gay now? Or are you bi? What's it all mean? And actually it's no one's fucking business. You know, find in your own time, you know. But there is kind of, I certainly had that view of kind of queer spaces, going, I'm not butch enough, I'm not enough, and there are some times in the like in the sort of queer community where I sometimes feel invisible because I'm not butch enough and I'm not femme enough. I'm kind of just somewhere in the middle, and I sort of wear what I like and do what I like and so there are some spaces that I don't feel kind of accepted in those parts of communities, but actually like I should exist in those communities, so demand the space, regardless of, you know, labels or whatever. If you feel like that is a space for you, then of course you exist in there because you feel like it's where you should be. It doesn't matter what it says on the door, and it doesn't matter what labels and things like that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think like especially like 6-8 years ago, the only kind of films I was seeing were like between two women anyway. It was sort of like forbidden love, and it was like boyfriend, and they were just like experimenting, and it sort of, it made me feel valid. And I've only recently kind of seen stories where like love between two women is just normal, and that is their decision, that's how they feel, and it's not like some forbidden love, and it's like the other's going to be torn away from the other or go back to their boyfriend, stuff like that. So yeah, that also kind of confused me in the sense of sort of like, oh, am I wrong to feel the way that I do? So yeah,
but they're quite problematic, those films, for that reason, because that's the impression that they give. And when I first started writing about being a lesbian, I certainly fell into some of those tropes myself, because that's what I was seeing, go, oh, well, that's my story, is it? And also, like, when you're first discovering your sexuality and you go, oh, I remember my first ever girlfriend was like, you have to watch But I'm a Cheerleader, Gia, Tipping the Velvet, this, or you're not a lesbian. And I was like, oh, okay, quickly. I'll just order them all off Amazon and secretly watch them in my room under my covers. Just pretend, oh my God. But that's not a thing. It's not real. And all those films are like, I mean, But I'm a Cheerleader is great, but like some of them are really terrible. And actually really like some of those narratives are really dodge. Even some of the new ones, like the new ones that are being made, aren't great. But actually the only way we're going to change those narratives is we write them ourselves.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, there's other ways. There's a great streaming service actually. What's it called? Lesflix.
Yeah, Lesflix.
Yeah, Lesflix. And it's great actually. Yeah, their films are, some of them are really, most of them are really good. And there's a thing called Queer Book Box. I don't know if any of you do that. Queer Book Box, you pay like a tenner a month, and you get sent a piece of LGBT fiction from Gay's the Word. They're always, the books are always really great and positive, and there's no kind of, I've not had one that's been like a kind of like shit narrative really. They've all been really interesting. Yeah, but also like, the community ask around and stuff, and people can suggest things, but Lesflix is amazing.
Miranda, do you have a question?
So I wanted actually to give Kelly, sorry, there's a train going past. I wanted to give Kelly a bit of a shout out because you were, I think I saw Tammy at Queen's Theatre on the Essex on Stage season. Didn't know that it was going to be a gay play. I had never heard of Kelly before, and had never heard, like, I can still actually count on one hand the amount of lesbians I've seen on stage. So genuinely, and I think it was probably one of the first.
I feel like the same with me, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted, especially I'm not from Essex, but I grew up in South Wales, so I wanted to, like, it felt very...
Whereabouts?
Newport. So
I know Newport well.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So like, not like, it felt very personal. So I wanted to give a shout out to Kelly for that. Because
thanks.
it's genuinely very like, this is a little bit of kind of me. But also I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of a question that I don't really know the answer to either, and it's totally fine if you don't. But it's something I've been wrestling with in my own writing, but also in the kind of the content that I consume myself. You talked a bit about like the ghettoization of kind of the gay play, and I think that's the same for any kind of like we talked last week about black plays, and the same, I'm sure, about women's writing is often that those kind of labels ghettoize things. And you talked about how you wanted that to kind of be more removed, and there just to be a general kind of fiction or a general drama. And while I do kind of agree with that, I think I've never, in my own writing, I've always made it very clear. Like, I've always been like, it's a gay play. It's gay writing. And in my characters, like, I always say that this is a black person, or this is, a Chinese person or something, because I think too often the kind of the narrative is to make them white, or because that's just the normal.
It gets washed out, doesn't it?
Exactly, and I think that's the issue with gay plays as well. So I just wanted to ask you how you kind of thought about that kind of balance between not ghettoizing yourself, but also making it very clear that it is a queer narrative, I guess.
Yeah, that's quite tricky. I think it still has to feel true to yourself. I think that's the thing. You still have to write the plays that you want to write that are true to you. And if those are those queer narratives, as in terms of kind of signposting, I think there's better ways of doing it. So as part of Queer Arts Collective, we would go and go into previews of shows, and then we would go, this play is suitable for, this play is of interest to a queer audience. And we would kind of flag it and kind of have a newsletter that we go, these are the current shows that are on that are of interest, specifically queer content. So I think there's better ways of doing it than the labelling of the gay play. But then the gay play is really helpful because of those things, because of the kind of going, that's what it is, and you go, actually, this is the audience for this piece. I suppose my like is when other people label them gay plays, and that's all they can see about it, and they can't see that actually this isn't a play, this isn't a gay play, this is a play about, I don't know, terrorism, or, you know, Bump is a play about extremism, it's about right-wing extremism, but she's a gay character and she lives her gay experience, the eyes of the play is through her and her gay experience, and actually there's been times when that's been referred to as a gay play, when it's not a gay play. It's not about her being gay, it's about radicalization.
So do you shy away from that when Bump is called a gay play, even if it has gay characters in it?
I think it's not true. It's just not true. Like, yeah, she's a lesbian, but that shouldn't be the only thing they say about the play. That's the kind of dishonesty thing that I was kind of mentioning with George. It feels like they cling on to that. To go, oh, it's that thing, and we're just going to label it as that without actually getting to understand the work and what that is. And actually, it's not a play about that. It's a play about something else. Because if I went to see Bump expecting a kind of lesbian love story, as you know, as a baby gay, I'd gone and like spent my money to go and watch this thing, and it may have been a big deal to me because it's the first time I've seen something. Yes, she is a gay character. That kind of it isn't about that, but maybe if that's not what I was expecting, you know, it might be like, oh, I think it's quite tricky. Because I'm quite open, like all my plays have lesbians in them, and I don't make it, you know, all other characters, and I don't make it like I'm not like this is, but I'm very clear about this is who these people are, and I will always cast LGBTQ. You know, that's quite a complex debate, you know, but actually I don't think it really is. I think if I'd have watched Sugar Rush you know, I did watch Sugar Rush, but if I'd have Les Flicks, they didn't exist when I was a teenager. You know, if I'd have watched that and they would have all been played by lesbian actors, like that would have meant so much to me as a young kind of gay. I think I watched it believing they were all lesbians, and then I googled it and was like, oh, none of them are, and go, oh, that's, you know, it's an extra layer, isn't it? You go, actually, of course we should be able to play ourselves on, you know, on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue for that is that, you know, the onus is on actors and performers to come out in an industry where, even though it's like one of the industries, it's actually still very hard to come out.
Yeah, there was that thing recently, wasn't there, where the author was forced to come out. Who was that? It was Love, Simon. No, the other one with a peach.
Yes.
Yeah. Call Me by Your Name.
Andre. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, I feel it really strongly. Like, obviously about trans roles. Like, trans roles should always be played by trans actors.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why we even debate that. A man should never play a trans woman. Scarlett Johansson should never play a trans woman.
And I also wanted to ask you as well, you mentioned some people that you were influenced by, and I also mentioned that I've only seen like 5 lesbian plays, so I wanted to ask you for myself, but also for the wider audience, to share this. Do you have any recommendations?
Good recommendations. Okay.
Specifically lesbian.
Okay. So The Funeral Director, which won the Puppet-Tango. Amber Trap, which was on 503. There's a play called Ebb and Flow, which is about an aging lesbian couple and dementia, which is my friend's play, and it's just won a prize. But it's incredibly beautiful. You can watch a little bit of online. It's not out yet, but you know, when it comes out, it would be a great one to see. It's a play called Grotty that was under the bunker. I don't know if anyone's seen that or heard of that. It's very specifically about it was very specifically the writer's experience, and it was very about the London lesbian scene, and the kind of toxicities that sort of exist within that. What else is there? I feel like I'm missing loads of like massive ones.
Just off the top of your head is absolutely fine.
Yeah. I can have a little bit of a think and have a little bit of a list. Those are the ones
Be a
that
good resource to
instantly
share.
come to mind. There's The Swell by Isley Lynn. But I don't think that's produced yet. I know lots of them haven't been produced. That's the thing, isn't it? You know.
We do, yeah.
But definitely female director, and definitely Amber Trap. Those were kind of out at a similar time. Yeah.
What was the name of the other one with the elderly couple? Airs and Flow.
Airs and Flow. Airs and Flow by Jennifer Lunn. Oh, there's The High Table.
Oh,
which
yeah.
which was on the Bush. What else? Yeah. I'll have a think. I'll get a bit of a list together.
Yeah, that would be great, and then we can share it.
Share it. Yeah. It's good to have, isn't it?
Cool. Has anyone got any other questions? Nobody. Yeah, it was interesting what you were saying about the casting, because I think we spoke about it a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
I know that what your opinion is on transgender casting, but what's your opinion on casting specific people for queer roles, and just sort of like against casting the right person for the job, depending on like how do you think that casting should go in that sense, if it is for a queer role?
I think it would be amazing if we could do it. If you can't find the right person for the job, but I think there are some incredible queer actors for the role. Whenever there's a queer character on stage or on TV, and they have been cast by someone who represents them, that's a big political decision. That's a political stance from the theatre, and it's amazing. As you can tell, like I feel like I can tell the difference when I go see a show and there's a lesbian and it's not played by someone who's queer, and you go, actually, I feel like I know the truth in it. But then, having said that, I've just watched Des on ITV, and it's played by David Tennant, and he's absolutely perfect for that role. He's so perfect, and he's a gay man, but David Tennant isn't. I think it's a really nuanced debate. I think it's a really hard one. What does everyone else think? I'd be interested to know.
I always feel like it depends on what the storyline is. If it's like a really if the story is about queer experience specifically, as those stories don't get told very often, I don't think it's fair that it then gets given to somebody who hasn't had to deal with that experience. But if it just happens to be a gay character or a lesbian character or a bisexual character, whoever, then I'm less, I guess, offended by it. But I do still agree that whatever the role of the story, trans actors should play trans characters, because that's like a whole separate, like those stories are even more minimal, so that should just be by trans actors. But yeah, I think it depends, and I think it's like sometimes there's this trend of like we're more forgiving if it's like a famous person, like, oh well, I love them, so I don't mind. But I don't know, so it seems inconsistent in the outrage. So
I wonder if it's a bit of laziness and lack of access, like not trying to really widen their pool of like who's available and knowing the talent out there, because you say there's some like brilliant queer performers, but I think there might be a little bit of people having their people that they use and not really pushing themselves. And I think it's something in every area that like you say, disability, colour, like we all need to push, and theatres need to push in their casting to look beyond the same old, who do you know? Who are you using?
You look at the Donmar. The Donmar were like, do you know about the situation with the Donmar? They were going to do, what's that thing called? Midnight in something. The Midnight in whatever. It's a very cult it's a famously cult kind of trans film, and they cast a kind of, they had a non-trans cast, and they didn't see a problem with it. And they were like, well, we sort of looked and we couldn't find anyone. But there's some amazing kind of agencies. There's a kind of, you know, My Generation do a trans acting course. I think Central do a trans acting course. There's the Queer House, which is also an agency. There's people, like, it's like, come on.
I also wonder if there's something like, people kind of seem to be like sometimes use the excuse of, well, that's the point of acting, you take on a role, right?
Yeah.
But it's political when you're if you use a middle class actor to play the part of a, you know, a really gritty working class role, that's it, I think that ultimately, like, it is a political decision if you're choosing to cast outside of that, because what that person brings is experience in a different way.
Yeah, and it's knowledge, and as an audience we will go, that is the theatre making a commitment. It is a political decision when we enter those spaces as queer people, and get up on those stage and say that we're queer. That's a political act. But not everyone sees it in that way, because they don't have to navigate the world in that way. I saw there was a production that happened, was it last year? Oh God, all the time is like blurring into one. So production last year, and it was kind of written by a well-known trans woman, but it was a cis white male, able-bodied director. And it was a cis white male, able-bodied assistant. The writer wasn't around much because she had other stuff to do. Writers we're not always in rehearsals. And it was just like, I used to do a lot of work with Trans Cymru, which is kind of an organisation that works with trans young people in Wales. And I actually wrote a play with them. I was very aware during that project I'm not trans, so it wasn't my story, so I couldn't write that. So my role as writer in that project was kind of more facilitator and kind of transcriber. That's a kind of separate, I think, conversation. But I took a group of these young teens along to watch this show because they were like, it's the trans show. There was no trans people in the cast. They didn't audition any trans actors from Wales, but they invited some of them to be on a panel discussion about gender. This is kind of what I'm talking about when we say gestures that are not true. They invited them all, some of them to be part of a panel discussion, and they were like, that was chaired by this kind of cis white able-bodied director who just fucking didn't get it because he navigates the world with an immense amount of privilege. And the first thing they do when you walked into that theatre is they categorize you. This part of this play was they'd go, you're a man, you're a woman, you're a man, you're a woman, you're a man. And I was with a group of kind of young trans teens who were kind of, some of them were non-binary, some of them were kind of not sure and kind of questioning. And it was a really horrible experience. And if you go, actually, this is a piece of work that's meant for you, but you're going to come in and we're going to make you segregate yourself and identify yourself, and you're going to be in a space that's really... And it was just awful. Like, it was really... And the gesture was, we're going to do this big trans piece of work, but there was no trans cast in it. It was really tokenistic kind of, panel discussions. There was no team. The only person in the team who was trans was the writer. And it was just, that's kind of one of those gestures. But it was awful, actually. And it, it made those people go, I'm never going to go back to that theatre, because they've said they support me and they said they're a space for all, but actually they're really not. And I think if you look at programming and you go, where am I? You go, actually, you can say what you want. You can say, I'm for you, but it doesn't mean you are.
Yeah, completely agree. Oh, sorry, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to stop.
Sorry.
Sorry. Does anyone have any last minute takeaways or anything that they just want to say or they've learned, or just something quick? Anybody? No? Okay. I just want to say thank you, Kelly, for joining us. It's been really, really great to have this conversation. Kind of therapeutic for me personally as well. And I've loved reading out your work and sort of hearing your experiences behind your work and everything, and your involvement with the community and all your recommendations with the plays and stuff. So yeah, I just want to say a big thank you.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I've loved it. It's been a really lovely experience. It's really nice.
Thank you. Also, just quickly, I'm just gonna let everyone know what session is next week. We have the gender session with Jordan Gray next week. That's our final session. She's a comedian, screenwriter. She created Comedy Central's Transaction. And she was also the first transgender contestant on The Voice in 2016, and she got to semi-finals. So I think that she's very, very interesting. So please, if you can make it, it's next Wednesday at 7 p.m. again, and you will be sent the link, I'm sure. But yeah, big thank you, Kelly, and I'll let you all go. But yeah, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a lovely week.
Thanks, bye.